Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time you're tuning into the podcast, whatever platform may be on. My name is Cdale Enick, and you're listening to the Stones Bones podcast. And tonight I have a really cool show for you guys, and this has to be a crowd favorite, especially for everyone on the page and everyone listening out there on our podcast platforms. That being said, if you guys are listening on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, CastBox, wherever you may be, make sure you visit us on Facebook at Stones Bones Billings. Visit us on YouTube at Stones Bones Billings. And you guys will be able to see the podcast in video version. And you guys will be able to see some of the stuff I'm sharing and talking about. And if you guys are on Facebook and you guys want to listen to me on the go, make sure you search Stones and Bones on Apple Podcasts, whatever platform may be on, whatever podcasting app you guys have. And tonight I'm talking about perhaps a crowd favorite on the page. And this one is really cool because this is Montana-based business, Stones and Bones. And perhaps the most popular stone inside of the shop would have to be Montana Agate. And this one is actually pretty popular around the world. I covered a little bit about it in the last podcast talking about agate. And we mentioned about how this has to be, especially when it's in its a really good shape and has a lot of definition to the stone. And some of the elements that are included inside of it had to be appraised by jewelers around the world and are regarded highly around the world by jewelers, especially when it is of quality. And it's Montana agate. And that is kind of cool to see because this is founding United States, and it has a lot of cool healing properties, and it's a really cool stone just to see. And I had no idea about this. We actually went to a show maybe about a couple weeks ago, and we had this sitting on the table, and we had some guys looking at the Montana agate, and they were actually surprised to see Montana agate on the table, and they were happy about it. But we are talking about Montana agate, and the reason is, like I mentioned, we're a Montana-based business. The Stones Bones Rock Shop is. And if you guys are in the Billings area, make sure you go to 701 24th Street West, Billings, Montana, connected to the Bodyworks Tattoo and Piercing Building, and you'll be able to see these in person. These are described as being translucent agate that contains inclusions, and the inclusions are really, they're kind of unique, just by the way they look. Most inclusions look a lot like ferns or dendrites, and dendrites are they have to do with neurons and brain cells and things of that nature. Also, I believe they're somewhat plant-based too out there. I'm not sure, but if you guys can, I'll show a picture also on the screen if you guys can't see what I'm holding. But they have really unique inclusions inside of them, and they are just really unique in color and in shapes. And they're kind of almost like a smoky quartz look too. If you guys are listening and can't see what I'm holding, they're kind of smoky. They have some black markings around them and also some brown smoke inside of them. Really cool. Now these have, and by far this is probably the most healing properties I've seen inside of a stone, especially being a United States-based mineral or a United States-based agate, Montana-based agate at that. And I've researched this, and the healing properties on this thing are just insane. There's a crap load of healing properties and just a huge number of this. Some of them, I believe that I've read about these, and they're actually used for meditation. That I've read a couple of stories on the internet. They can also be called Yellowstone agate because of the origins in the Yellowstone Park area, and I'll explain that of why that is in a second, of actually how these formed in the Yellowstone area, Yellowstone Park area. Montana agate is described as having black manganese oxide, also red iron oxide, has usually nodules of gray or translucent chalcedony, and that is just some of the makings of Montana agate. Also referred to as moss agate or iris agate, and I'll cover these also in the future podcasts of moss agate and iris agate. I believe moss agate comes from the India area, and that will be another podcast of itself. I'll have to get some. The healing properties of Montana agate, like I mentioned, are phenomenal, and they are just a high volume of healing properties. But healing properties include promoting maturity, inner stability, and composure. Also said to strengthen one's poise, and said to help write down and verbalize your ideas, and enhance your imagination, and end bad luck. So this is actually a stone, especially if you're an artist, and I know Montana well, and I work with tons and tons of artists, and I know that a lot of you guys out there are also into healing stones. And when we set up for events, and we go and sell our art pieces, because we have an art business called Fallen Hour. We go out and set up for events, and a lot of times people will come to the table and they'll ask us if we have any stones that have to do with healing or healing properties, and will actually ask us about some of the healing properties and some of the stones. Like if we have amethyst with us, if we have Montana agate with us, we have crystals with us, quartz crystal, and it's just a really cool thing. So if you guys are actually in creative, or if you guys are artists out there, this is actually a stone to have and an agate to have, because it promotes said to promote creativity and imagination. And the cool thing about Montana agate is, especially if you guys are aware of the Yellowstone and the Yellowstone area, Yellowstone Park, you guys know that this is a very volcanic, active place. And perhaps one of the biggest volcanoes in the world are underneath the Yellowstone area, believed to be created from volcanic activity from millions of years ago. And this is actually said to have happened over millions of years, that volcanic activity was creating the makings of agate. When lava, and this is just some of the ways that this was actually made, when lava consumed wood from eruption, some of the ingredients of the limbs of trees like sequoias and redwoods were trapped in the lava. When rain came, mineral-laden silica water flowed into the cavities left by dying trees and lava. This would happen again and again with silica liquefied, making Montana agate possible. And that was surprising to learn, because I had no idea that Montana agate was a volcanic agate. And just of some of the eruptions that were happening over the years, millions of years ago, Montana agate was made possible. Montana agate has tons of healing properties, like I mentioned. Like, this is a huge amount, everything from helping with pregnancy to improving self-confidence, and it's just a really, really fascinating stone, a truly fascinating agate. And I'm happy that we are local to the Montana agate. So I actually believe we have some of this on the website. You guys can go to stones-bones.com. I know this is a quick podcast. I just want to get this podcast out quickly. And I plan on doing more about Montana agate. And there is just, my camera's dying right now, so I got to get this podcast wrapped up. That's why I went through the podcast really quickly. But it's a really cool stone. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. You guys can go to stones-bones.com and search for Montana agate. There's tons of things on the site, including Montana agate that have bears, they have buffaloes, they have Montana agate belt buckles, and things of that nature. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. My name is Cdale, and you're listening to the Stones Bones podcast.